Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, khush amdeed, ji ayanu, goeiemorgen, ishpata.
Fakhar Agale, Ni Hao, Tuna Shumme, Washmale, Ohio Gonzaimes, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifa Hal, Hale Shuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasalan, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabiab, Bhalli Kare Aaya, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into PTV World. You're watching World this morning alongside my very amazing, the very learned co-host, Ms. Shiza Hashmi, and I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan. Jama Mubarak, everybody. Today is a very important day. We cannot take a lot of time to kind of do our discussions as well. But Shiza, let me ask you, how are you doing today?
Doing absolutely great. Thank you so much for asking. And I wish the same for everyone out there, our regular audiences especially. So for all of the people who have been waiting for this episode, I'll tell you, we actually have a very informative and I want to say it's a new experience sort of.
Exactly.
We have done this particular show a lot of times, but the perspectives that we will bring to you on this particular day about this topic is something interesting. I feel like before we do give it away, we should take a look at the report that our team produced.
And before we look at the report, ladies and gentlemen, our Prime Minister, Alhamdulillah, Mr. Imran Khan Sahib has been talking about this change as well. So today, it actually happens to be, I have to give it away.
All right, let's do it.
Tomorrow, it happens to be World Food Day, ladies and gentlemen, but we are observing it today because it obviously is a very important issue, a very pertinent issue over here in Pakistan. When we talk about malnourishment, when we talk about undernourished, when we talk about stunted growth, I think that there are, and when we talk about food insecurity in particular, I think that these are the topics we need to talk about. But where I said that, that there's a lot of positive change to see or witness, today you'll be witnessing it over here on World This Morning. Because Alhamdulillah, we've been joined by Minister Saab to kind of answer all the questions we have for him. But first things first, ladies and gentlemen, we actually want to head out towards a small report. Go ahead, take a look, and then you guys will come back. We will be introducing our guests and asking them some pertinent questions, relevant questions related to World Food Day. Good morning.
Let's do this.
It seems crazy that we live in a world whereby a large portion of the population can indulge in any sort of food they wish without a second thought while others struggle to put food on the table. Today, World Food Day is being observed to focus on different aspects of food security and agriculture, including fishing, communities, climate change, and biodiversity. The theme of this year is better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and better life. Hunger is rising due to factors including conflict, climate change, and COVID-19 pandemic, which is putting a strain on food systems that are already falling in many countries. In recent years, World Food Day has focused on different aspects of food security and agriculture, including fishing communities, climate change, and biodiversity. World Food Day is not about celebrating the amazing food that we have the privilege of indulging in, but it is about raising awareness for people who do not have such privilege. There are people all over the world who are suffering from hunger. Starvation is a massive problem in a number of countries, and we need to do more to raise awareness and combat this problem.
Well, of course, this was really important for us to learn along with the other things that we are going to talk about. And Shahzad, you mentioned, undernourished or malnourished children.
True.
While we do have a very huge population of them, if we were to put them into numbers, can you believe under the age of 5, 45% of those children do not have the right quality or the nutrients of food to eat? And just imagine the kind of growth their mind or bodies will have.
Exactly.
It's just unfortunate.
And Shiza, not just that, I think that, when we have to talk in terms of the global perspective, we really need to talk about how to combat hunger, contribute to peace in conflict areas. And there have been areas where, ladies and gentlemen, hunger has actually been used as an excuse for conflict and war and a weapon as well. But without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we have actually been joined by the Federal Minister for National Food Security and Research as well. We're very lucky, we are obliged, we're thankful that he has taken out time, that too early in the morning. He is Syed Fakhar Imam. Hello sir, Assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Walaikum assalam, good morning to you.
Thank you very much sir for joining us, and it's wonderful to have you over here. Thank you very much. Likewise, that's what he meant. But ladies and gentlemen, moving on, alongside Mr. Syed Fakhar Imam Sahib, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by representatives of FAO as well, and she happens to be Miss Florence Roll. Hello, Assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Walaikum salam. Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you alongside Miss Florence. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very lucky that we've actually been joined by a very handsome man over here. He happens to be the country director of World Food Program. He is Mr. Kaye. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning.
I'm blushing, but thank you and walaikum salam.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you, and we wanted to have a total mix, and which is why we have representatives from FAO, from WFP, from the ministry. The Minister Saab is here, ladies and gentlemen. But we wanted an organization who was working on the ground over here in Pakistan so that they can, kind of
Paint us a
paint a
picture,
very
yes.
realistic picture over here as well. So we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by the Program Manager, Resilience and Humanitarian, Oxfam Pakistan. He is Mr. Amir Kaleem. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Walaikum assalam and good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, sir, first things first, we know that this is a very important day, especially for Pakistan, and it's because of the fact that there are a few figures which I'm going to share with you. 20% of the population is undernourished, 45% children, as Shiza said, are growing up with stunted growth. 36.9% population is food insecure, second highest malnourishment in the country. 82% children deprived the meal when they needed one. So, how would you highlight the importance of this day in the first place?
I think nutrition for all citizens, infants, young children, adults is crucial to their life and crucial to how they evolve as human beings.
True.
And I think Pakistan was 32 million in 1947, what was then West Pakistan. Today we are 220 million.
True.
So our population has gone up 7 times, and we have almost kept up with grain production, in the sense that wheat production has been recorded this year 27.5 million tons, but still short by about 1.82 million tons of our requirement. But that's the quantum part. You're talking now of the nutritional side, and you said that the infants don't get meal or the young children below the age of 5 at the time they want it. The figure that you have quoted to me looks a bit too high, frankly. But as far as the other figures are concerned, 19% are insecure, as these are our own figures. However, we want the Prime Minister in particular is extremely concerned about stunting of children. So there are 2 aspects. One is the quantity aspect, the other the quality aspect of nutrition. And the caloric intake that human beings require, both in terms of what they get in the form of carbohydrates, fats and protein. And in fact, it's the protein content of our food intake which most of the time is not up to the mark, and that is what I think contributes a lot to our stunting of our children's growth and others. And this is an area where we need really to fortify ourselves. And let me tell you one thing. Over the last, especially in the last 25 years, Pakistan has not really invested, I use the term invested, in the agroeconomy as we should have.
Yes.
And this is a worldwide phenomenon for third world countries when you have a quick look at it. But this year we have upped the quantum of investment in agriculture because it's part of our theme. And the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, the Cabinet in particular, we are pushing agriculture. We've had 3 out of the 5 major crops record production, second highest record production for one. Cotton, in which we did not do well this year, we are having a much better result so far. But because cotton seed is a byproduct of edible oil, so that's part of the nutrition side.
Sure.
So in that sense, the quantitative and qualitative aspects of nutrition must be constantly evaluated, and wherever there are shortages as required, we should import. We should not be at all afraid of doing that, and we're doing that.
Wonderful. Oh,
Definitely.
that's great.
And I think that's well explained, but taking this further as well, Ms. Florence, you also have your expertise in resource management, natural resource management as well. So I think it's only pertinent to ask, while we happen to be an agrarian society of millions of people and a huge percentage of them being employed in this sector and just generally working in this sector at a household level too, how come they're still insecure? And actually, they are the ones working in the agriculture sector who are the most insecure. Where is, does it go wrong? Is it the process? What do you think?
So, when you have a country which has a large part of this population still agrarian, it means that the transformation of the economy has not been complete.
Okay.
When you look at the developed countries, this agrarian population is very low. It's a few percent of the population. Today, the middle income country, like Pakistan, have not that fully completed that rural transformation, but because of the population, it might not fully complete. And because the industrialization has not been fully done and we've gone that step already, we will keep, not as large, but we will keep a part of this population in the agrarian. So the question is now, with that amount of population in the rural areas, where do we need to invest? And agriculture is a sector which is implying a reduction of poverty, which has an impact on poverty reduction, which is very high. So that's why it's quite important in order to have your rural areas having a well-being, I mean, being much better, to invest in the agriculture sector.
Exactly, and we certainly need to talk about that because we've earlier kind of discussed this, Shiza and me, and you know, with other panelists as well, that we really need to have technological interventions.
Definitely.
Where, you know, per acre yield we are increasing, we are actually focusing on that as well, which we will come back to as well. But let me move on to you, sir. And you know, so sir, if the figures were high, you know, the report was published by the World Food Program. So you can ask them themselves as well. But sir, right at the beginning of the program, I mentioned that, you know, that there are three major characteristics within when we talk about World Food Day as well, and that is to kind of make sure that we combat hunger, that we contribute to peace in conflict areas, and that hunger is not used as a weapon to kind of create conflict. So how do we curb these menaces in the first place, looking at a very global picture?
Look, you know, the largest number of people who are struggling with situation close to famine are those people who are in situations of conflict.
Yes.
And that's man-made. So if you want to end hunger, you have to end the wars. It's really simple.
That's true.
But there is unfortunately, hunger fuels conflict.
Yes.
Hungry people are angry people.
True.
So this is where the World Food Programme has been recognised for its contribution in alleviating some of the problems in conflict-affected areas.
True.
Because of the enormous amount of work that we do to bring food to people who are caught in situations of conflict, such as in Yemen, such as in South Sudan, such as in Syria, and so on and so forth. So, you know, it's a stabilising contribution that we can make to reduce the possibility of further conflict, or even, as you've indicated, the use of food in a manner which can actually really cause and create even more devastation. And it's where food is being used as a weapon of war.
Exactly.
You know, we're using food as a weapon of peace.
Exactly. And you know, sir, in addition to that, I know that, you know, we're actually having a very serious conversation, but whenever I'm hungry, I'm angry, or I'm hangry, you know, I think that's what I would love to say. But World Food Program was actually awarded with the Nobel Prize as well in 2020, where the theme was grow, nourish and sustain. So I think that the footprint has been over there, you know, in a global picture as well, and even in terms of Pakistan, which we will come down to. But let's move on to Oxfam now for a while, because Mr. Kazilbash has been a very regular on the show as well. But sir, with you, I know that it's going to be the first time. What is the ground reality of Pakistan when we talk about insecurity, or maybe the quantitative aspect of it or the qualitative aspect of it, please?
As our Honorable Minister just mentioned, we are doing maybe pretty well on the quantitative side, as we are one of the top 10 producers of our major staple foods: wheat, cotton, sugarcane. Pakistan falls among top 10 producers.
Sir, we are still not self-sufficient. We are only self-sufficient in rice.
And that to some
Yes,
extent. But
to some extent with imports, you are taking care of the quantitative aspect.
So we're growing.
Yeah, but at the same time, the qualitative aspect for all is seriously lacking. Access to the majority of the population to nutritious food is not there. There are several factors behind that, but one of the biggest factor is the income gap, because people cannot afford to have good meals on their table.
All right.
right. So how do you think, first of all, let's take that further as well. How can we, it's such a big or a generalized thing to ask, but how do you think we can fix that, first of all, where you talk about the income gap, especially because I don't think that the word deserve even comes here when we talk about food or food security at all. Everyone needs to have food in their plates by the end of the day, you know, it is only fair. But also, I want you to add, when we talk about food security and how we've been talking about conflict raises food insecurity and vice versa, back to conflict as well. We're living in 2021, and now that everything is also a sort of a cyber warfare as well, how do you think nations can actually come to a consensus, if that is a word, where whatever happens among the governments or the states themselves, the nation state or the people are safe and secure?
Yeah. At least we do not fight over food. Yeah,
I mean,
that's what
we hope so,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a fair and equal distribution of the resources.
How though?
Ultimately,
Yeah.
that would give us the solution.
Yeah.
There are power dynamics in play, obviously politics and the availability of resources in different areas matters. But the thing is that we use what is available, all the resources that we have a distribution that is fair, that is pro-poor, and addresses the nutrition needs of the nation.
Definitely.
Exactly, and that's what, and this is the way forward as well. But sir, first things first, Honorable Minister Sahab, credit is due where it's due. So congratulations on the record yield as well, this year, which you've mentioned earlier as well. But sir, moving on, where you said that, in fact, Ms. Florence said that we really need to figure out where we need to invest. Now, sir, when we talk about agroeconomy, we still know that the technological intervention has not been there, it has been missing. I mean, for a country where the total economy well, not total now, I think 50 or 60% of the economy is based or dependent on agriculture. Why do you think that we have lacked so much in terms of technological interventions? Because people are coming up with smarter ways where on, probably per acre, we can actually get much more yield. And why aren't we doing that? Why do you think we're not experimenting with that? Or are we?
No, we are experimenting over a period of time, but the real issue is the overall economy of Pakistan.
True.
We have a GDP of $300 billion. We have a population of $220 million. Now, the issue, as I said, is how you allocate resources. And I said investment in agriculture for the last 25 years has been, in my opinion, much less than what it should have been. And because we have 3 or 4 other areas in our budget, number one is debt repayment, which is nearly 3,000 billion rupees, followed by defense, which is 1,400, followed by investment in our civil services, which is 11 to 1,200 billion, and the rest to 800 billion is for the rest of the economy. Now, when you come to, in terms of the finance ministry and the cabinet and the prime minister, we have to make allocations. Obviously, there's a strong competition where the money should be spent. As how have industrial countries, and in the last 40 years, China has the fastest growing economy in the world, 10 to 13% to start with, and 6 to 8% more recently because of COVID. But they were able to generate so much that they could save and invest. We, on the other hand, never have had that privilege where we could save and invest on long term, and we've had to borrow. And now that borrowing is really now a major problem. Agriculture, mechanization. We are now bringing in a new policy for mechanization. We have already worked on it, and hopefully next week we'll make a presentation. I'll give you one figure. Sure. Pakistan has 620,000 tractors, and our tractors are of a very small size, 55 to 85 horsepower. We only have 2 manufacturing facilities in Pakistan, and the implements we use are still very, I would say, not highly elaborated, in the sense that we mostly use the cultivator and we 8 other implements which other countries use, but our holdings again are also small, 8 acres on the average. However, technology transfer is the key to and research.
Yes.
And quality matters. We need to reform agricultural education system. We need to upgrade it and make it competitive, globally competitive, and this is the big challenge. I've been talking to universities in our agricultural side, and I said that on the floor of the House in the budget speech, I said, unless and until we reform and upgrade our agricultural education system, actually education broad, but because I'm dealing with agriculture, our universities need to completely change their curriculum standards, because these young men and women are going to be the future pivotal catalytic agents which will transform our whole systems of economic and agroeconomic growth. And if they are empowered, knowledge empowers you. And knowledge which is applicable empowers you further. So we have to then, we have several institutions of research, but we need to have scientists who are globally competitive, and we need to incentivize them. We need to bring in people into agriculture, because most of our younger people are opting for medicine, engineering, high tech. We need to bring them back to agriculture so that the rural economy can take off. Rural economy will also take off if we have investment in the quality of schools. Quality of teaching has to totally change.
Absolutely.
Quality of health facilities, because those are the key. When you live in a rural area, why are they going towards the urban and peri-urban areas? Because they find that the quality of either health or education is not the same in the rural areas. So we need to upgrade a lot. It requires time. The Honorable Prime Minister is fully cognizant of it. And as I said in the past, the neglect was there. We don't have the required funds. We need to, but whatever funds we have, we must use them with a cost-benefit ratio for the people of Pakistan, for the grower of Pakistan, for the farmers of Pakistan.
Wonderful, sir. And sir, to be very honest, I've, on all these years, I've spent with PTV, I've met a lot of ministers, I've been in conversation with them, and it's wonderful to actually have somebody so learned,
Yes.
well equipped, and knows the figures as well. So it's wonderful. The credit is due. But sir, one more thing. Now, this is something which I've realized over here in Pakistan, and it's happening the most as well, and that is that people are selling their agricultural land and making sure that they are constructing buildings on top of that, and that they will get rent and not what. So how do you think that we are going to actually kind of give them that benefit once they won't even have that land to kind of grow their yield on? So how do you think that the government is going to curb this very problem as well? Because everybody wants to drive in a V8 and have dollars at their back as well, and be whoever they want to be. So how do we change that perspective of people getting richer by selling property rather than selling, food which they have from their land?
Or do you think it's an issue?
No, it is an issue with the young, especially those living in urban areas, because they see films, they see how young people abroad, they see the few who are actually living like that in Pakistan. So there is that urge for emulation. But on the other hand, we must give role models of those who have done their due diligence, worked hard at the lowest level, and have actually accumulated a lot of things where they have earned genuine profit, invested it, saved it, and cumulatively build up. That's how, when you do that properly, you then accumulate wealth for the country. Because when you produce more instead of consuming, this is the basic equation. You must produce and at less cost. This is how the
And
Chinese...
then there should be value for that production too as well.
No, obviously, but this is where you see policies come in. In the sense that, let me give you one figure. In the last 10 years, cotton, except for last year, over a period of a decade, the farmer was getting on the average 43 billion rupees less for producing that cotton at the same level of the international price. So over a period of 10 years, the ginners and spinners were making 430 billion rupees in 10 years at the cost of the farming community. It's again happening this year. World prices have skyrocketed in cotton, and we were working out the 3.85 million bales, which has come up 9.5 billion rupees. The farmers have got less than international price today in the last 2-3 months. Now these are the kind of distortions which actually do not encourage the farming community, because the lobbies, if I may use that term, are stronger and much more organized. The monopolies, oligopolies, which then the farming community is scattered, because there are no large holdings. We have small or medium-sized farms now in Pakistan. So with that, in effect, changes the whole equation.
Exactly. Thank you, sir.
Well, that is, of course, definitely makes sense and sort of paints a picture of what's going on too. And I think, like we said, credit's due where it's due. Ever since the incumbent government came into being, PTI, a lot of welfare programs have been going on, and I have mentioned this over and over again. I'm in love with the Langar series, especially because, ladies and gentlemen, you have no idea the amount of people that go to bed without any food, and it really, really bothers me. And so, I mean, it also bothers the Prime Minister. So the government is doing something. Now, Ms. Florence, just yesterday, our President, Dr. Arif Alvi, was addressing on an occasion about food safety, and he mentioned, while he said, yes, we need to incentivize our farmers and we need to add technology, like Minister Saab mentioned too. But he said that we also need to lessen our footprint on the global resources as well. The income inequality is huge globally as well. So there's only a few number of people who's actually adding to the footprint, but the masses have to bear the brunt of it. How can we fix that?
So the footprint, agriculture is part of the problem and part of the solution on the footprint issue. Why? Because agriculture, we are using other resources which are limited, and we need to use them more efficiently so that we produce the food that we need to feed the people of the world. On the other side, the agriculture also produce green gas
emissions, of course.
Yes.
So, but the whole equation is around a word which we use a lot, but which has a meaning, which is sustainability.
True.
Yeah.
So the big issue today is to look at sustainable agricultural development and to compensate, that footprint and the food production. And we had, every year, we have 5 UN organizations, so FAO, but WFP, IFAD, WHO, and UNICEF, and we produce a book which is called The State of Food Insecurity in the World. And we had one, I think it's last year, we had something on healthy diets. Because one thing is people who are hungry, the other thing is to eat well.
Yes.
And it's related to the stunting issues that you were mentioning before.
Yep.
And we calculated that to have a healthy diet, it's 5 times more costly than just, putting starch in your stomach that you're not hungry. So the issue of having a healthy diet, which is more expensive, but we looked at the cost, the saving cost, in terms of health cost, because if you are healthy, you don't have all these diseases, etc. And if you are healthy, you produce less green gas emissions. And the saving cost of that was, if I remember well, around 3 trillion of US dollars around the globe. So if you could have that saving and invest it in agriculture to have a sustainable agricultural development, then
so in simpler
you could.
Right. So are you saying in simpler words, just by improving the quality of food, we could reduce the economic burden and get to those numbers that you just mentioned?
Yeah.
Well, we
Out
hope
of 3
so.
trillion, we will probably
hope
get millions, to kind of invest over here. But sir, Chris, moving on to you. Now, obviously, Honorable Minister Saab kind of talked about all of those lobbies which exist, and everybody knows they exist globally as well, and they distort and they make countries vulnerable. And this is how the world politics go on as well. I mean, agencies like World Food Programme or Food and Agriculture Organization or Oxfam definitely have a role to play in making sure that lobbies at least do not exist, because these organizations have been out there making sure that they are helping the common people all over the globe as well. So what role do you think that your organization needs to play in making sure that these lobbies will be distorted rather than them distorting us or making us vulnerable?
Well,
That was a brilliant question.
Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
but there's been an extraordinary effort this year to deal with that very issue, and culminating actually at this year's General Assembly, there was a Food Systems Summit, which looked at the systems associated with food production, from farm all the way through to market, to the table. And understanding many of the issues that you've just been kind of reflecting on. It's the systems that are essential to be able to manage effectively not only the production of the food, but the movement of the food through the chain, the supply chains, all the way through to supermarkets and onto people's tables. And there are inefficiencies in those food chains. And that's what the Food Systems Summit took a very careful look at. And Pakistan, led by the Minister, did a very thorough examination of the food systems in this country to better understand exactly where those weaknesses were, where the gaps were, with a variety of different recommendations in terms of how to address those. Every nation undertook the same exercise. And culminating in a global understanding of some of these sorts of challenges that we can address at all levels of the system. So, our challenge now is to take the outcome of that Food Systems Summit and start applying them in policies. And I'm sure that the Minister will attest to many of those actions which are
The way he's
already
nodding,
in
he's
place.
saying yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, and that truly needs to happen as well. But moving on to Oxfam, where Sir, you've been working on all levels, right? So obviously, we sitting over here, we do not really want to kind of blame the government for everything. I think it needs to be public-private partnership. In any case, this is how nations do prosper and nations develop as well. So rather than identifying, okay, we have identified what the problems are, may it be on the qualitative side or the quantitative side, how is Oxfam making sure that for all of the funding they're getting in terms of food or wastage, food insecurity, how do you think that you're contributing or kind of are being the helping hand alongside the government in a public-private partnership? Because this is how we will prosper together.
Well, Oxfam is working at several levels, particularly at the grassroots level with the growers, in bringing their voice forward at different fora, particularly where policies are made or where decisions are made. We have grower organizations set up within the communities, within the farmer groups, particularly focusing on small landholders, and bringing their issues to the table where the policies are made, linking them up with the stakeholders, with the exporters, with the wholesalers, so that their issues are addressed and they get a fair price for their product. That is the main effort what Oxfam is making.
And this is something we have witnessed for the very first time in this government's regime as well, that everybody's getting a fair price. At least we need to talk about that too. So congratulations, because the farmers at the grassroots level have been really happy about the price they have got this year as well and the previous year. So we need to talk about that, but please move on.
Yeah. There is a gap in the value chain where the small farmer is exploited and they don't get the right price for their product. So in that sense,
the middleman.
The middleman. So
commission.
Cutting the not exactly cutting, but allowing a fair wage or a fair price to the small farmer is our objective, and that's where we are working. Particularly in rice value chain, we are working with the exporters who export rice, premium rice, basmati rice to the European markets. So they are now in collaboration and working with the small growers and providing them a premium price for their product. So in this way, they get a good return for their produce. So similarly, we are working in other avenues also.
Amazing.
All right, well, that's great. And Syed, when we talk about a developing country like Pakistan, it is definitely unfortunate because of the, power divide or economic divide whatsoever. Inequality is there in terms of food too. And while with such a huge population, every year 36 million tons of food goes to waste. And it's sad because that food is produced, it is brought to the tables, but it goes to waste. It is just insane to even talk about it.
True.
So we have a very quick small report for you guys to see about food safety, or rather how this can be managed in this country. Particularly, let's take a look. When we come back, we will take our closing notes from the guest.
Wonderful.
Food safety has a critical role in assuring that food stays safe at every stage of the food chain, from production to harvest, processing, storage, distribution, all the way to preparation and consumption. Pakistan has made significant progress in food production over the last several decades. To address the challenges regarding food safety, the government of Pakistan has taken several initiatives. Food safety is a shared responsibility between governments, producers and consumers. Everyone has a role to play from farm to table to ensure the food we consume is safe and healthy. WHO works to mainstream food safety in the public agenda and reduce burden of foodborne diseases globally.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like as if change is inevitable as well. But ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great honor to kind of host all of these wonderful, amazing people who are working day in, day out to make sure that everybody out there has actually food in their plates as well. But very quickly, towards the end, well, it's going to be tomorrow on the 16th of October, but since we do not have a show tomorrow, so we're doing it today, World Food Day as well. So, Minister Saab, sir, anything you would want to say to the nation out there, please go ahead and say it.
I think Honorable Imran Khan's government's main thrust is to raise productivity, to provide pure quality seed. That's because without pure and quality seed, the production doesn't go to its optimum levels. That's one of our major priorities. Bringing in technology changes, I think, is the other priority, which with mechanization as one of the key components, and to give a fair price to the grower. And in some of the crops, I think we've been able to do that. because there's only one crop, wheat, which we give minimum support price. On sugarcane, the provinces give, otherwise it's free market. Pakistan has been, I think, doing reasonably well, but we could do much better, provided other components get in. But investment in agriculture is the key in research, in extension, and in enabling an environment for the farmer to maximize, optimize their production.
Wow, wonderful. A message with a very positive vibe as well. Ms. Florence, what would you want to wrap it up with?
So I would like to say to the people who are watching us that ending hunger is not going to be only, the responsibility of Honorable Minister, mine, Chris, etc., but it also come about consuming, so the consumers. And I would like to make a plea to the consumers to consume responsibly and in a sustainable manner.
And that's wonderful. Mr. Chris, take it away.
I'd just like to reflect, we're celebrating World Food Day, and I think it is a day to celebrate. Food is an amazing resource.
It is.
It brings people together. The diversified food that you have in Pakistan is extraordinary. The cuisine you have in Pakistan is extraordinary.
We hope you've had the biryani yet.
Let's indeed. Let's celebrate World Food Day, but let's forget those people who are out there who are hungry.
Of course.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Amir sir.
I would like to say that organizations like Oxfam can only do this much. It has to be a collaborated effort by all stakeholders at all levels.
Yeah.
So I'll urge, let's work for increased income opportunities, decent wages, decent working conditions for the small growers.
Wow, wonderful.
I
And
think
thank
that's
you
a
very
very
much.
important message.
Thank you very much for these messages. And I only have 2 messages to give him, and that is that just the other day I was thinking that my belly was popping out, and I was like, so I go to the gym only once and I eat like 4 times a day as well. So I think I need to use this less and my muscles more. Number 1. Number 2, ladies and gentlemen, alhamdulillah, we are blessed to have domestic help at our houses, and my parents have always made sure to make that whatever we eat, they eat it as well. So I think in this way we are actually helping people to make sure that they eat the right food and the right amount of food as well. Please make sure that if you have domestic help at your houses, at your places, share whatever you eat. And I think that they will work more dedicatedly as well. So thank you very much for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you all.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, towards the end, there's just one thing I want to say, rather take one of the messages forward as well, where we're talking about consumers. We are them. You and I, we are the consumers, and doesn't necessarily mean if you go to a restaurant, you're a consumer. Even the, the products that you use at your home to produce food and then decide to either waste it or not share it with someone, you're also a consumer. So today, let's take a pledge on our individual level to share our food, no matter how much we have, because I promise you this by experience, the more you share, the more Allah gives you.
Exactly. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for saying that. For everybody who's out there, please make sure that you write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of
Well This Morning.
on Twitter,
Well This Morning.
on
without
Daily
the G.
Motion and YouTube.
Everything Well This Morning.
And the fabulous repeat's going to be at
5 past midnight.
till the
tonight.
next time. Look after yourselves. Jummah Mubarak. 1, 2, 3. Good
Good morning.
morning.